Hello, guys. Hello, family. Let's get that audio check done as soon as possible. Just a couple people to tell me you can hear me just fine. Get our announcements out the way before I introduce two personal friends of mine I met through Dawn and Maurice. Maurice Demers and Dawn introduced me to Krys and Steve Crimi in North Carolina on our meetup trip. I actually did a video in their home. It was a live video, and they were in it as well. Hello, Meryl Gigi. I just saw you pass by. Jahar Ali. Hi, guys. There's way too many for me to name. Errol G. Excellent. Excellent. So you guys know we're doing a meetup right here in the Houston area on the 30th. On March 30th. You still got almost 2 months, guys. But we have limited seating. Ticket sales are pretty good right now. You guys know these are round tables. We like to include everybody. So we rent these really big rooms so we can have a huge circle and everybody can be involved. We do raffles for free archaic stuff. We do free giveaways of books from the 1800s. I got a lot of extra copies of extra books. This is what we do at the meetups, guys. If you want to join us, it's where we get personal. People laugh, people cry. We do book signings. You got Archaix merch there. A lot of people get to know others in the community that way. So the first meetup in Houston is on the 30th of March. The next one after that is somewhere around April 20th in Florida. So, and after that, we'll be going to Virginia. All right. So, not too many announcements. I just want to remind you guys, I am not on Facebook and I am not on Instagram. So if anybody contacts you, it's that scammer. We all know who he is. He's been doing it. And just don't get taken. Don't get taken by anybody contacting you because, one, it doesn't matter what platform. I will never solicit you for anything, ever. I'm never going to pop up on your feeds anywhere trying to sell you something. You go if you're not on YouTube, on Twitter, or on I guess YouTube, Twitter, or Archaix TV. I'm not really doing anything anywhere else. So if somebody looks like Jason Brashear's contacting you on any platforms, I promise you, it's not me. It's not me. For those of you who are on Archaix TV, I dropped a new Archaix shit show newsroom. And we've got Big John live on location at the tunnel in New York. You need to see this guy at the tunnel in New York. Big John's there showing us the Jewish tunnel under the synagogue. So we got Big John live on location in the Grand Canyon showing us what's really happening at the border. It's not what you think. Right there, he shows pictures of the Rio Grande and the fence. This is Archaix TV. We're going to be doing a lot more of these news events like that. That's the second news program that dropped in Archaix in the last 8-9 days. So, announcement. Also, new Phalorn Saga videos dropping as soon as we're done with this live video today. A Phalorn Saga video will be available. But before you watch that, you need to watch part 2 of this video. This is live with Krys and Steve Crimi. But when this video is over, I go into a lot of detail and I show a lot of pictures on some pretty amazing parallels that defy coincidence about Gobekli Tepe and different passages in Genesis and in the book of Revelation, and very definitive things that Paul said, and how uniquely all these places are in Turkey. So we're going to get to that too in the second video with some mind explosions. But other than that, don't have any more announcements. I would appreciate if one of my moderators would put the link to the Houston meetup in the chat. You've probably already done it. Y'all are pretty good at that. I removed a couple moderators this morning because I just haven't seen them in the chat in a very long period of time. So I just went ahead and removed them. I'll probably be looking for 1 or 2 more moderators. Somebody who's Archaix veterans, people I would recognize who've been here for a long time. But yeah, we almost got 1,000 people in the chat. So pretty good. I'm pretty good with starting our presentation now. I'm going to introduce to you 2 dear friends. This is Krys and Steve Crimi. I wrote about them a little bit in the description box. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're all right. How are you?
Very good, very good. Y'all are in North Carolina, outside of Asheville.
Actually,
beautiful home.
Inside.
I've been in it like 3 or 4 times. It's a beautiful home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. No, we've been in the area since 1999. We had a farm, and then we've been inside the city since 2011. We bought a house.
What, 1 mile inside the city limit, which now we're kind of regretting. But
yeah, I know. Big John and I were in the van one time pulling up to your driveway, and it shocked me, man. We almost ran right into a black bear.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. Right.
Man,
we have them.
Yeah, sometimes I'm out in the yard and I almost run into a black bear.
Yeah, I think he's messing with the trash cans on the side of the road.
Yep.
Yeah, they know trash day is Thursday.
They want to make me
very astute.
Yeah, the bears keep a schedule.
That's it.
They know.
That's it. They know, and they know the holiday schedule where it skips to Friday. They're very good, very astute.
Wow, that's crazy. So, you guys have a very unique history. I mean, you have, like, I met Freeman Fry at your property.
Fly.
Yeah.
Fly.
There was a lot of people coming and going. I met some other YouTubers that were at your property, and I know that you have some history with you personally know, like Randall Carlson.
We do.
I know you guys have traveled all over Turkey, Anatolia. I wasn't aware till recently that you guys have been to another place that I'll be doing a presentation on, and that's Angkor Wat.
Yes.
Angkor
Tom.
Yeah, we got some. Actually, I can recommend a good book on on the geometries of it by the woman who discovered the measurements of why they're different at each temple in that whole area. And she uncovered, and the number 108 is the operative number with all that, which wouldn't surprise you.
Yeah, 108's everywhere. It's sacred geometry. It's all in the Great Pyramid. It's all laid out at the Giza complex. It's the number of beads on a Buddhist rosary. It's a lot of the Eastern texts focus on 54 and 108 and 216.
And the outer wall of the Angkor Wat temple, as each of the successive walls are built on the numbers of the yugas. The largest wall being is it 864,000, and the whole wall is several miles around, maybe about 12 miles around, and it's only 2 millimeters out of perfect square. I mean, just unbelievable what these people did.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's I refer to that civilization as technolithic. Everything is of machine quality. It's amazing, and we're not replicating it today, but we'll do an Angkor Wat one in the future. It is one of my interests. I've read David Hatcher Childress's material, and he cites a lot of sources talking about how archaeologists know that the present Angkor Wat is not the original, and that it's actually built on foundations of a much older civilization. But
well, it's not that old. It's right. Started around 900, maybe, I think.
Right. But it was built on the megalithic blocks are all underground. It has a really good foundation of a city structure, an infrastructure that was there long before the present Angkor Wat. And that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah, and that's everywhere, isn't it? From the Egyptian plateau to everywhere.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's everywhere. So you guys sent me 2 files of pictures. One file is a combination of 1983 and 1985.
Right.
So the second file are pictures that you guys took in Turkey in 2015, right?
Right.
2015.
Right. So that was, So actually, because, the origin story is that I was there in 1983 with a friend, and we traveled there for 3 months. And we circumambulated it from right on the then Soviet Union border to the Iraqi border, to the Iranian border, to the Syrian border, and went around. So I spent a lot of time in what's sometimes called Kurdistan. And that was a 3-month trip. And then I came back and I started working at this psychiatric center, and I met Krys. And as it turned out, we got together first because I learned that she was the only other person I'd ever met who read G.I. Gurdjieff's Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, which is this 1,500-page opus.
Gobbledygook.
Really, really difficult to get
Right.
much out of.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Gurdjieff. I've tried. Dawn is. I just can't. But I absolutely adore Ouspensky, and
Well,
he's so much easier to read for me. And I don't know. Just,
right. Well, they had a split, and then at the end of his life, when Ouspensky died first after World War II, someone brought Gurdjieff Ouspensky's book, and Gurdjieff said, "Yep, he got it right." So Gurdjieff endorsed him. But Gurdjieff's a rascal, but I think it's he's not as systematic,
Yeah.
So
right, is it what he calls the crazy wisdom school? Like he's among those in that.
Right.
But do you know the music of Thomas de Hartmann?
No, you're talking to the wrong person if you want to talk about music.
It's in the Gurdjieffian model. It's
I know nothing about music.
It's exquisite. And there were also these dance movements. Have you seen them at all that Gurdjieff brought back from the Sarmang Brotherhood, which was way deep in the East?
No, I didn't.
Exquisite.
Okay. Well, I'm just impressed that Ouspensky, and I know he was the student of Gurdjieff, but I'm just so impressed that like Tertium Organum, how this man could actually break down the architecture of our reality in 100 years ago. That book is awesome. So,
it is. It's a great book.
God, I read that.
That and In Search of the Miraculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, I found someone in the middle of this, huge state psychiatric hospital system. Krys was a recreation worker. I was basically the muscle on the ward. And we got together and started talking about stuff. And as it turned out, well, you can tell them the origin story.
Oh, yeah. How we ended up in Turkey?
Well, yeah, if you want.
Okay. So I was on the tail end of a bad marriage, and I got this notice in the mail from the Institute of Noetic Sciences that there was a peace conference in Malta. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? It was going to be Dalai Lama, Jahan Sadat, Marilyn Ferguson, Desmond Tutu. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be interesting? So I asked my husband of the time, hey, you want to go to this? And he said, nah, not interested. So I thought, well, maybe someone wants to go to this. So I'll bring it into work and I have a lot of professionals around me. Maybe somebody should take advantage of this. It's such a cool thing. So I passed it around the coffee room and nobody picked up on it. And then I opened up the rec room and the patients came in and Steve came in and I showed him the pamphlet. And the first words out of his mouth were, oh, you want to go? It's like, yeah, I do. So that started it. And then I guess it took a couple of months, that was it was crazy expensive. And then he came up with a couple other suggestions and maybe we could go to Tibet. Well, that was too expensive. Maybe we could go to Findhorn. That was too expensive. So Steve's travel partner, Peter, said to him, well, why don't you take her to Turkey? So he came in and he asked me if I wanted to go to Turkey. I said, well, why would I want to go to Turkey? The only reference I had for Turkey was, do you remember the movie Midnight Express? There was a guy from Long Island, actually, who ended up in a prison because he got caught with drugs in Turkey. And it was this awful story. It was a true story. And that was my only reference for Turkey was these horrible Turkish prisons. So I was like, I don't want to go to Turkey. So he said, tell you what, I'm going to bring in my travel journal and I'll let you read my travel journal. And then we can have a conversation. Well, I was smitten when I read the journal. And then he said, okay, another thing I'll do is we'll do a slideshow on the ward for the patients and I'll bring in my slides of Turkey. So that's what he did. And then we showed, and then that pretty much sealed it. I was like, wow, okay, let's go. And it was affordable. So we went, and that was 1985. I was 35 years old. It was my first time out of the country. And I was like Alice in Wonderland, fell through the rabbit hole. My jaw dropped when I got to Istanbul, and it didn't come back up till the end of the month that we were there. Done. I was just like, wow.
Speaking of Istanbul, if you guys walk through Istanbul,
yeah,
you already know that you walk through a city that used to be called Constantinople, and before that, it was the ancient Greek city of Byzantium. You know, this city is very ancient, and it probably had more names before Byzantium as well.
Yeah,
there was a lot of crossover. There was a lot of crossover with Bithynia. It is
and all
ancient.
that is still present. It's very much alive there, and that was my first exposure to that. And then, you know, what really caught my attention was there were two women walking down the sidewalk hand in hand. One had a burqa on, and the other one had a business suit and an attaché case. I was like, there it is. You know, it's like the ancient and the modern right together in harmonious, beautiful, getting along nicely. It was an absolute delight, and the Turkish people were incredible. Just amazing people.
So you did a lot.
Go ahead.
Did you do any painting over there? Because you're a painter, and you gifted us a painting. And if Dawn's listening, she can bring me that painting right now, and I'll show it because it's beautiful.
Oh, how
it's beautiful.
sweet.
Well, that's nice. Thank you.
The painting came later.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I know because
I dabbled a little bit, but the actual.
For those of you interested in the art, the links are in the description box. You can go check out her gallery. Some of those are for sale, but she has a gallery that shows her work and all that. It's pretty interesting. And she's sitting next to. I believe I have 3 of the books. I don't know how big the series is, but I have 3 published books with Steve Crimi's name on it. So.
Right. Well, I only have 1 of my books, and then the complete works of Fitzhugh Ludlow, which
he edited.
That I edited.
Yes, yeah. Your name. Okay, you're on the cover as editor then. Okay.
Right. So that's I pulled out a couple of them, but
the Fitzhugh Ludlow. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
The Kestrel, which started out as something else, and I was painting it, and Steve said, "Oh, that's a really nice Kestrel." I was like, "Oh, okay." So
try not to get that reflection on it. It's detailed. It's nice. It's great. It's great.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the subject, so this is one of Fitzhugh Ludlow's books, and what we did with these here. So it's a complete works of a 7-volume set, and what we did, if you can see the inside, was really try to replicate as best as we could the original. So the old school printing. Nice big print for us with eye issues. So that's one of the books, and I think I may have given you this one, Heart of the Continent, which is
I've got those 2, and I got another book that was written by you.
Right.
That's Katabatic Wind.
Yeah, and that's this one, Katabatic Wind. So they did. So that's, and I'm trying to finish up my second book now, and this is a lot of Greek and Indian mythology, and how they're still alive in certain ways today.
Awesome. Well, I mean, Hollywood's always borrowing, timeless themes like out of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and the stories of Arjuna. All they do is change the names. It's still the same stories over and over.
No,
I mean,
it's the human story.
If you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you realize there are no new themes. Especially everything. The Odyssey, everything's in the Odyssey, especially.
The Odyssey's awesome. I love the Odyssey.
I
mean, the epics are great, but I'm really addicted to what most people consider dry and boring as hell, like Robert Graves' The Greek Myths.
He's great. He's a great version.
His book, The White Goddess, and I know right now you're reading Gerald Massey. So a lot of people won't get into this stuff, but that's where
reading Jason Spears.
Oh, you're reading me?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So this
So anyway, so that became our first trip to Turkey. So we got together and we so we spent a month backpacking, and that was basically our first date. And I'll tell you another little side story about, so this was 1985 that we went. And I had a dream around, I was in college, it was in 1980, 1979. So I had this dream and I wrote it down of my name was on a tombstone. And the date was May 1st, 1985. And I generally know that death in a dream is metaphorical generally. And so as it was, and the way this thing's worked out, it's turned out that our plane took off from here on May 1st, 1985. So that was basically the death of the old Steve in the
And
beginning.
we were in midair when he told me about the dream.
I waited until we were in midair to tell her the dream.
Oh, by the way.
So
Wow. Well, let's get into this first file so you can tell us what we're looking at.
yeah.
You ready? Let's see here. I'm still kind of tech retarded, so I gotta.
Yeah, and I did give them to you in alphabetical order, so they're, but you know.
Oh, I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know if the file transfer keeps them in any type of order.
You mean alphabetical?
Well, I titled the pictures, and so
Oh, really? Not chronological?
Let's
no,
see.
because
Oh.
It's all right. This is the order that they are on my computer. This is the first picture.
okay, we'll deal with that. So that's the tombs of the Pontic kings, and that's in a city called Amasya. And I like that picture, but you can see on the tomb on the right is a person standing in the entrance.
That little white speck?
Yeah, so it's so huge, so huge.
And they
There
do
you
go all the way around. And now, and I'm forgetting the dates on these, and I think pretty sure they're maybe around 500 or something. I'm not sure right now on the dates. I forget.
Well, you said Pontic. You said Pontic. So
Yes,
are
the
you talking
Pontus.
about? Are you talking about the kingdom of Pontus?
Yes.
The Mithradates regional.
Mithridates, yes, these are the Mithridates tombs.
Okay, so King Mithradates IV, called the Poison King, was the one that caused the great insurrection against Rome. He became one of the largest threats. I have a video on Mithridates and how without an army, he delivered one of the greatest blows Rome ever endured. But yeah, that was Pontus. That was this kingdom here.
Right. So,
Jason, why did they call him the Poison King?
Because he always had poison tucked in a pouch in his lip, because the Senate had put out so much gold for his head that even his allies were trying to kill him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he ended up committing suicide. He wasn't going to let the Romans capture him because of what the Romans did to their enemies in a triumph.
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah. All right. So this is, you can do this one.
This is Krys. We were actually, this was at the entrance to the underground city.
Right, which would be the direction they're facing.
And so, as a courtesy, you would wear something on your head. It's almost like when I was growing up in Catholic Church, and we would always wear a veil or a hat or something when we're in a holy place.
Right.
So as a courtesy, you would do that in honor of the culture there.
I wonder if that courtesy is still today. I mean, it's gotten a lot more liberal today than it was.
Sure it is. If you go into a mosque, you would do that. I don't know why I was wearing it outside, but Matt probably bought that scarf there, and she put it on. That's what it was. Now I'm remembering. I bought that scarf there in that little market stall, and that lady put it on my head, and she called me Fatima. You look like Fatima. So that was just before we went into the underground city.
And as you know, they go. The one we visited, that one there goes down about 10 stories, about 10 levels. It probably goes more. There are dozens and dozens of them. There are only, I think there's a third one now open to the public. At the time, there were two, because most of them are filled up with methane gas. But this one, as I recall, could hold 100,000 people. And
Hold on. What? I'm showing a picture of Krys right here, a younger version of Krys.
Right. Well, what I'm saying that was taken at the entrance to it. I don't have any
okay. So we're gonna
of the underground city. We had a great picture. You can tell about the soldiers.
I don't know what happened to it. Yeah. So when we went that day, we went down into the tunnels, there were some Turkish soldiers there with rifles,
Okay,
and we got into
y'all are
a nice
jumping on me.
conversation with them. And so we said, oh, it'd be fun to take pictures together, right? So they let Steve take my picture with them, but they handed me their rifle. Like, this was an okay thing to do.
Right. And
So
unfortunately, that picture is so dark and I can't find the slide
it seems
anymore
to have gotten
try
lost.
to fix it. So
Alright.
anyway, yeah, so that day, yeah, so they were so cool that they handed Krys the loaded gun and let her and just took a picture with her holding the gun.
Yeah.
I don't think that would happen today.
No, I don't think so.
Hell no, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. So you did provide pictures of Daring Kuyu, the underground city, but they're in the other file. They're not in this first file. So we'll get to that.
All right. Well, okay. So this is in one of the churches in Cappadocia. And these
Yeah,
are all these churches where, so Cappadocia is this large area with incredibly soft volcanic rock, so that they just carved out troglodyte dwellings everywhere and
Yeah.
churches and monasteries. And I just says, okay. And I still haven't been able to find, what that particular mudra means in Christianity,
Right.
with the ring finger.
Yeah, I see it.
But I thought it's just quite an interesting painting. There's a whole section of Christian, lore coming out of Cappadocia, probably, from the 800s. It was a big monastic community, probably lasted to maybe 1200. The churches were all being built there. There were monasteries. I mean, back when we were there in 85, it was just a playground. It was just all open. You walked in, walked around. It was just so wonderful that we caught. We really caught the end of the old Turkey.
So this would be the a lot of my listeners, some of them know, but a lot of people listening to this, they don't understand. There's a huge difference between Eastern Orthodox Christianity and the Roman Western Christianity. This right here is like Eastern Orthodox. This is Byzantium Christianity. But yeah, they even had different versions of the Bible. They had different translations. They had different apocryphal, pseudepigraphical text. As a matter of fact, a lot more of the materials of the Gnosis came out of this area than it did from the Roman Christianity.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, just backing up, but I don't know that. I think most people know about Cappadocia and what it looks like, but it looks a little bit like a moonscape. And all of the topsoil has been washed away or blown away. And all that's left are these structures that look like when you go to the beach and you make sandcastles with the wet sand.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, the whole landscape. And then because it is soft rock, they carved out these almost like caves, but rooms. And then they made these beautiful paintings on the inside and made them a Christian community.
Well, and
I have a pretty good idea where all that topsoil is.
Where?
All the Huyuk sites and all the tepes sites were all buried 10 to 15 feet underground.
Well, I started thinking about it because we were listening to your show on the Sphinx yesterday. And I was wondering, well, is that water damage? Is that what the water did because of the undulations
at Cappadocia?
as opposed to wind damage?
At Cappadocia.
Yeah, I was sort of, entertaining that possibility. So that's a particular valley that has a lot of churches. We took a drive to
Peristrema.
Called the Peristrema Valley. So those are one of the carved churches, and those are two friends that we made there, Zeki and Haki.
So on the right, the guy on the right in the black, we met him. We took an overnight bus into Cappadocia area, and we met him on the bus overnight. And he just asked us if we needed a place to stay. Are you looking for a hotel? And we said, yeah, we'll need a hotel. So he said, okay, well, I have a friend who has a hotel. I'll hook you up. So when we got there, we were the only people in the hotel. It was early in the season, and they opened up the hotel for us. So we were the only ones in the whole building.
Damn.
But that's what the Turks do.
His friend on the left, Zeki, he said, well, are you going to need to rent a car? So, yeah. So he said, well, my friend will rent you his car. So Zeki was a teller in the local bank, and we went down there and we gave him $20, and we rented his car, and that's how we drove around to go to the Parastrima Valley.
Yep, and we were on one of these roads in the middle of nowhere, and Chris gets pulled over for speeding,
Yeah.
driving the car. And so the policeman comes up, and she didn't bring a license. And back then, in New York State, we were living in New York State, there was no picture license. So I just handed her mine, and she gave it to the cop.
So the guy's looking at me like, what is this? I'm like, yeah, in America, this is my license. I'm Steve Crimi. So we got away with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, good. There you go.
So those
you get
are
a good idea.
Yeah, so those are called fairy chimneys and other things in Turkey, but that's the level the level of yeah. So as you can see, the lower levels were all wiped away, but in one way or another, and they left the harder rock on the top.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's really, Turkey is so unusual. All this geology, all this geography right here.
It's astonishing.
Yeah. And this is all kind of in the middle of Turkey. The main city is called Caesarea, which is named after Caesar. Yeah, but the whole landscape, like now it's just like they've got balloons all over the place, so it's kind of half ruined. Oh boy! So now we're shifting out to the far southeastern corner of Turkey, the kind of the wildest area of Turkey. It's the town's called Hakkari, Hakkari, and these are Kurdish nomad tents out there. I did not go. That was my first trip. I would not take Chris out there. It's a place that's only, you can see some people there in the tents. You can only access the area maybe like 9 months out of the year, if that much, maybe 8 months out of the year. And wild, yeah, it was a pretty wild area. So that's me scampering around. That's probably my favorite picture of myself. You can see my Turkish dictionary in my jacket pocket.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Had to have that all the time. I did not, I learned a bunch of words, but I never got, grammatically facile with Turkish.
But
at all.
still, it opened so many doors. All you had to do was make an attempt to speak Turkish, and it opened so many doors. People were so grateful that you even tried.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris, you remember this strapping young fellow?
Oh, I sure do. Yes, I do.
He's still.
Look at him.
He's still in here somewhere.
We got here.
Right.
I do, Jason.
So this is a place you probably know something about, Catal Huyuk, right? Which is one of the Hittite cities, and that's the famous Sphinx Gate entrance to it.
Yeah, the Sea People's Federation took them out about 1200 BC.
They did. They did. East? So, well, this is not far from Ankara, so it's kind of like central Turkey is where the the Hittite strongholds were. And
at the same time, the Philistines were Sea Peoples too. They were attacking Egypt and getting repelled, so they had to. That's when they settled Philistia. At the same time that was happening, the Mycenaeans had joined the Sea People's Federation, and they attacked Troy and Ilium, which was controlled by these people here, the Hittites. At the exact same time, the Sea Peoples went through the Dardanelles, went through the Sea of Marmara, entered the Black Sea, and then attacked the Hittites from the north, a totally unexpected move. And they took out Hattusis, they took out Alahati, they took out this place here. Yeah, I've done a lot of research on the 12th and 13th century BC. It's the origin of the Atlantis story as well.
Jason, what do you think that red is? We were trying to figure out on the stone. Do you think it's lichens, or do you think it's iron in the stone? Do you have any guesses?
I don't know. I mean, it could be red ochre. That was real popular back then.
But would it hold up that long, or?
I don't know if the ochre would.
It's even
I don't know if the ochre would stand it that long. Yeah. I hate to speculate on something like that because I know these have been here for at least 3,000 years. So
maybe lichens.
It could be any culture. Christians could have come and painted these. You never know.
Yeah. So and of course the Hittites had a big war was Ramses II.
Yep.
And,
Well, as a matter of fact, they entered a peace agreement.
that's the
in
first
the, after,
written one, right?
after the Battle of Kadesh, they entered a peace agreement with the Egyptians. Even though they beat the crap out of the Egyptians,
Mhm.
they entered a peace agreement because they knew of the Sea People's Federation was a greater threat. And the Sea People's Federation attacked Egypt at the same time it took out the Hittites. The last Hittite record comes from Hattusis, and it was a clay tablet that was found in an oven where priests were describing that the war that was going on, and
Mhm.
they never even had time to burn the tablet. They were taking over, every man, woman, and child put to the sword.
Well,
That's
yes,
crazy.
and if I remember correctly, that agreement, yeah, and then Ramses' description of the battle was basically something along the lines of his army fled, but he took on the whole Hittite army all by himself.
Well, yeah, he was allowed to rewrite history because the Hittites had been taken out by the Sea Peoples, but he survived the onslaughts of the Sea Peoples, both invasions of Egypt. So without the Hittites being there to correct the record, he was allowed to write whatever he wanted to write.
Mhm. Mhm. So that's at the
Okay.
one of the great museums anywhere. It's the Museums of Anatolian Civilizations, and so they rebuilt like the homes from Catal Huyuk, as we were talking about before. It just follows the whole history of Anatolia, from from the Hittites to the pre-Hittites to the Persians to the Greeks to everybody. And so this, I believe, is outside the museum, and I think it's pretty sure that it's from the Hittites. It's another.
Yeah, I believe it is Hittite. I
Yeah.
believe it's Hittite from the square, these little
Yeah.
faces, the big eyes. But more so, it can be dated from like 27th century BC to 16th century BC, simply because this is the two lions motive
Mm-hmm.
right here, and it's real popular in Knossos. It's real
Mm.
popular in Catal Huyuk.
Right.
It's popular in all the Huyuks. They found these right here, but it's to me, in the Archaix model of history, this is vapor canopy iconography. During the vapor canopy period, which is the pre-flood period in Genesis,
Mhm.
that was a real popular motive of a leader, either a female representing the goddess or a male representing the consort of the goddess, would be between two lions.
Yeah, yes, and especially the goddess and the mother goddess of most of Anatolia, usually under the name of Kybele, Kybele. Now, okay, so now we're getting again. This is Eastern Turkey, and what I did not get a picture of, though my traveling companion did. So if you look across from left to right in that sort of flat area in this picture, that is a plain that goes right to Mount Ararat. And it's about 50 miles away. And you can't see it here because it's just way off to the right. Okay. And even at the time it was weird because we were like contacting people, seeing if we could, people who wanted to take us up and climb Mount Ararat, and at the time there was I forget the astronaut who supposedly found the Ark there. It wasn't Edgar Mitchell. It was not Aldrin.
Are you familiar with Ron Wyatt?
No, not particular. No.
He claims to have found the Ark too. I have pictures of it. I was going to show them in this presentation. I have them on my computer right now.
Okay.
But
Well,
they had found a giant structure on the slope of Mount Ararat that part of the time it's covered by a glacier. Other times it's exposed.
I've seen the picture, and it's a pretty interesting structure. Anyway, so the thing at the time though is I had really bad dysentery. I could hardly climb stairs, let alone a mountain. So we decided not to do that. But this is a road going to this. It's right on the Iranian Turkish border. And there's a palace. It's built by a Turkish robber baron. All right, it was in the 1600s. It was built, but his guy must have been pretty rich. He was able to hire the best Persian artists around. So the next picture shows you. So I guess it's part of that. I'm sorry, these are not in any great order, but this is an example of the high quality of artistry that they had in this palace.
It's amazing.
And, just think of what what these people did with stone.
It's amazing.
Anyway, so that's it going up to it. And so that's the pass. That's one of the main passes that's going into Iran. And so this area, and you can see some of the walls off to the right. These are all Uarshan fortifications. And
did you say Urartu?
Urartu, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. I got it.
So that was that's their kind of the middle of their strong, their main. They had something of a little empire for a while, and they go back way back. So the Urartians, I guess, a lot of people think that the Armenians are what came of them, and the Kurds are supposedly what became of the Medes that were in this area also.
So is that from Ur? Is that the Ur? Uarshians? What is that?
Well, Uarta also gives you Ararat, I think, also. So Mount Ararat.
Yeah, these were Hurrian. The Urartians were Hurrian people. The Hurrians. Okay. Yeah. He's talking about like the 24th to 19th century BC. This is a long time ago.
Yeah, these guys are way back. So those
are a beautiful name of the palace.
So the Ishak Pasha is the name of the palace.
I just love the name of it.
A couple more, maybe a picture or two of that also in here.
It's very magical.
So that guarded the pass, and of course, I guess there was a nice toll. So
that's a good shot.
So that's another picture of it. So we actually, I can tell my dog story, if you'd like. So we were going to stay up there and spend the night. We got there too late for it to be open.
This is Peter and
this is my friend
Steve.
Peter. It's my friend Peter. Like I said, I didn't take Chris out to these kind of wildlands.
Yeah.
And we were going to stay inside this little enclosure, and we started hearing dogs barking. And one of the themes of the trip was the Kurdish. The Kurdish dogs are like the most fierce dogs in the world. I was in a taxi once, and the dog was biting the wheels of the taxi as we were driving. Okay.
Wow.
So, I mean, they're just so fierce. And so we were hearing the dogs barking. We decided, I think we better get back to the town, which is about a mile and a half away, to get out of trouble. But what happens is there's a little road. It was like a cliff road and a guardrail. And then all of a sudden we were blocked by 2 Kurdish dogs. And then 3, and then in my imagination, probably about 20, but it was probably about 5. And they were baring their fangs, and they were looking really, really mean. And, I had nothing on me, so I'm just like picking up rocks. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. So my friend and so we're just trying to like inch down the road, but each time it got closer, they would inch closer to us and get more and more ferocious. So it reached the point where I said, okay, well, here I am in the middle of nowhere. This is it. I'm going to probably facing like what I would consider, my most horrific death, being torn apart by dogs. And all of a sudden, in the middle of that, I get this unbelievable feeling of peace and calm. Like there was just this, everything was okay. And if they tear me apart, it's okay. It's not a problem, So I got a rock in each hand. They're about 2 feet from me. And then this whistle from off the distance, and they're gone. The old dogs just ran off and went back to wherever they were called to. It was like they were never there. So I learned.
I felt that before.
Yeah. Well, I learned, my lesson I learned was basically, I'm not afraid of death since that day, So yeah, I'm sure you've encountered things similar to that. This picture, so the walls off on the right. So those are the Urartian walls. that are left. I mean, there's not a lot left from that particular civilization. And
Were there
then-
any people dwelling there, or people living there at that
Yeah.
time?
There are towns, there are
there were.
cities.
But in these
Yeah.
buildings, like this.
Oh, that's a later mosque.
Oh, it's a mosque. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
that I can tell that that mosque is a later addition. But these walls, for them to be positioned right there with these giant boulders behind them, this tells me that we're looking at most of these facilities went into the hill, into the mountain.
Right.
There's got to be galleries and chambers of rocks in multiple levels to put these walls here. They got to be protecting something.
Right. Right. Well, that's a good point. I didn't think of that, but that's, yeah. So those walls are all around there, and they're, as you said, very, very old.
Wow.
So is you.
What? Oh, that's me. So that's
Temple of Zeus.
at the Temple of Zeus. Yeah.
So Karaman, which is fairly close. That's in Karaman. Kara is the word for black. So it's like, Blackville or something like that. So it's kind of this obscure temple to Zeus that is, relatively intact for an ancient temple, Greek temple.
But there was like an underground room. The
Yeah.
floor was open, as I recall,
Mhm.
but there was a chamber, a big chamber, where they would do some kind of underground ceremonies.
Yeah, you said Greek, but I'm looking. You think this might have been Syrian Greek, like Antiochus?
Well, it's that, yeah, because it's in the middle of Turkey. It's not, it's near Konya, which is kind of in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
So I don't recall the date on it at all, but it was probably.
Yeah, because I know the Syrian Greeks were the Seleucids. The Seleucid
Right.
dynasty was real strong in Turkey back then. I think that was the only real Greek presence.
Yeah, and my my knowledge of columns isn't that great. I don't know if that's
Is that like a Doric?
I don't know if that's a Doric column. It looks like, at least, or a combination of
I
Doric
shouldn't even
and,
say because I don't know.
Anyway, but it was a temple of Zeus. There was a chamber under there, and so some sort of ritual or what's called incubation probably went on under there, which is the ancient Greek spiritual practice of lying completely still and going and connecting with the gods that way.
How far is this from Pergamum?
Pergamon's on the coast. It's a long way in. It's a good
Okay, because you
100 miles.
Because you remember Paul in the New Testament, it says Pergamum was Satan's seat.
Right. Well, we like Pergamum.
Why'd they say
We
that?
got some pictures from Pergamum in the other file.
It's a pretty nice place, I thought.
Yeah. Well, we also got a picture of the theater where Paul just barely got out with his life in Ephesus.
Yeah, this was beautiful.
Anyway, yeah. So it's a fairly intact.
And Karaman, what I remember from the city was dust. I mean, there was so much dust in the air,
Yeah.
right? But it was also a place where they make a lot of the Turkish tiles and ceramics. So that was like every other shop was. Oh, here we are in Konya.
So that's Konya, and that's the mausoleum of Rumi, that turquoise.
Beautiful turquoise.
The turquoise in the middle there.
And that's our friend.
A fluted
Ahmed.
turbe, I think is what they would call it.
Yeah, look at that. That's all tile.
So
Crazy.
Isn't that gorgeous?
beautiful, and so the whole mausoleum to Rumi is wonderful. So this is a guy we bought some carpets from,
He's a carpet salesman.
and he had a little group that studied Rumi.
And
And this is
dervishes.
in '85. Rumi was just starting getting known with Coleman Barks was doing translations of him. All right, this is another favorite picture. So this was right on the Iraqi border, and went out, took for a walk, and all these kids were carrying these plants that I have no idea what they are still,
Can't figure it out.
and they kind of just lined up for me to take the photo. These are all Kurdish children. They did not speak Turkish.
Mhm.
So this is way off near the border. And then, so I took this picture, and I pretended that I was going to eat one of them, and they freaked out. So apparently it's not good to eat.
Oh,
The
the
flowers.
flowers, not the kids.
And then I took a walk, and we started talking with some of these
So
people, and
sweet.
this is 83 is the beginning of the Turkish uprising of the PKK.
Beautiful.
This is
Beautiful.
around the time that National Geographic took a picture of one of their faces. This girl with real haunting hazel
Oh
eyes.
yes. Oh
You
yes.
remember that famous
Oh
picture?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Haunting.
So that night, after taking that picture, we were eating in a restaurant. We had met a teacher who spoke English, so we were talking with him, and two of the gendarmes, not two or three anyway, came down and said, "Yeah, the general wants to talk to you." And then we were whisked up to the army center, and this general questioned us for a couple of hours under a machine gun pointing at us.
Damn American spies.
Well, that's what they were wondering. And he goes, "No, tourists do not come here." And then at the end of it, he says, "No, I do not think you are smugglers, but there's a bus leaving at 7 a.m. You will be on it." That is it.
Wow.
And we were. So this is this crazy place called Mount Nemrut. Nemrut Da, D-A-G-H, but you don't pronounce the G.
Yeah, it means mountain. Yeah, I'm real familiar with this place.
Right. So Nemrut means cruel. Their name for Mount Ararat is Agrida, which means mountain of pain. So yeah, so this place is spectacular. So actually, my friend Peter and I took 2 days. We actually climbed the mountain. And it took 2 days to climb up there. We stayed at some tiny village. Some people took us in, and it was the best yogurt I ever had in my life. So this King Antiochus, right? Antiochus the First, right? So that's his tomb, and it's a pyramid. It's a 150-foot pyramid of small stones. So I don't think there's anything else like it anywhere. I don't count any pyramids of that nature. And so what we did was second day, and we climbed up there, and we spent the night up there. It's about 6,000 feet. It was pretty chilly to watch the sunrise. So here's me. So on one side of this pyramid, of this mausoleum, which no one has found the entrance to yet, there are these seated figures, and these are the heads that have fallen off from earthquakes and what have you. So archaeologists have not rebuilt the seated figures, but just left the heads there.
Well,
So
they had not rebuilt it at that time in the 80s, but I'm about to show pictures of it's fully restored.
Oh, they did.
They did fully restore it. Oh, this must be really recent. So this is facing east, and so he traced his lineage back to the Persian and back to the Greek gods. So on the east, he's facing the Persian side, and so these are the Persian gods, and there's I don't know exactly. They just say a Persian eagle, which is kind of weird. That doesn't make any sense. And then on the other side are the Greek gods, which would have had
The Olympians,
Apollo and the rest, Apollo and Zeus and Aphrodite and the rest of them. And this is a lion altar, though I'm sure some people will think it's a spaceport. But this is a lion altar where I don't know. So that obviously they must have done some kind of sacrifices. It was some kind of altar, and again, that was on the side of it. So it was this huge thing. Now you just drive up to it probably with 1,000 Japanese tourists, and they go crick and leave.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, on our second trip to Turkey, we've certainly found a lot more of them. This time, we just had, like I said, it was like the old Turkey. We had the country to ourselves. No one spoke English.
Out there.
Yeah, out there.
Yeah.
So that's actually the mausoleum of Rumi's father in Karaman, and it's just in this. When we were there, it was just like one of those things you just had to find. It was in this dinky building at the top of a hill in this desperately poor neighborhood, and
Right.
That's
the last photo in that file right there.
Okay.
That's the 1980. That's the 1983 file. Here's the that was the 1983 and 1985 file. So let me show exactly what you just. One of the first things you showed was the Hittite areas.
Mm-hmm.
It had the Hittite. What was that? The Sphinx Gate.
Yep.
Are you familiar with the Hittite Lions Gate right here?
Right. So that's in Hattusa.
This is the capital city of the ancient Hittite Empire right here.
Right.
But here's another Sphinx Gate.
Look at that. Huh?
Right.
Now, what are the eyes? Are they obsidian or are they just hollow?
These are just hollow. The gemstones have probably been removed all throughout Sumer and in Sumer and Akkad. They had the same statues, but they would put lapis lazuli in the statues to represent the eyes of the gods.
Okay. Because there was a statue out in Şanlıurfa, way out east, that had obsidian eyes.
This is an artist rendition based off the archaeology on what the Hittite capital looked like when it was in full bloom. This is a metropolis. This is huge.
Yes,
it is. It is.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's astonishing. You read all these accounts, 100,000 soldiers here, going out to fight. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I've read so many accounts, it'll blow your mind. It's like nothing. Like the Assyrian king Sennacherib had 240,000 troops. He marched to Egypt, but he was going to attack Egypt, and then something weird happened. The sun stopped in the sky, then it moved in retrograde, and a thunderbolt from the sky vaporized 185,000 of the soldiers.
Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah,
he retreated back to Assyria in shame, and the Bible actually says that Jerusalem was delivered, but that's not the truth. The truth was Pharaoh got delivered. He was about to get attacked.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened to happen outside the walls of Jerusalem, but Jerusalem wasn't even a military asset. It's not even on a trade route. But I mean, history gets rewritten. You know how it happens.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But let's see. Here's Mount Nimrut you were talking about earlier. Here's some pretty good pictures of it before it was restored.
Nice shot.
Right. Yep.
And now look at those conical hats. What's the angle
So those
on
are
them?
the
Is that
Phrygian,
is that a 51 degree?
Well, I don't know, but those conical hats, you're looking at one that's been broken off. They actually went way higher.
Yeah.
These are the
one next to it seems to have its point yet.
Yeah, but even that one's short because the Phrygian caps actually went really high. Yeah, I've got pictures of them. Matter of fact, you saw one on the intro to my video, the 3-minute intro I show. It shows a prisoner with a Phrygian cap. It goes up like a sock, going real high.
Right. Huh.
Okay.
Right. So now you got an idea
that.
of the scope of the pyramid of the mound.
Look at that.
Yeah, that place is huge.
So what is that?
Those are all little rocks. Those are
all little
There's
rocks.
all little like hand-sized stones.
There could be a huge square structure underneath here that's fortified. There's no telling.
But no one's found it. I don't know. I mean, I assume someone's done some sort of penetrating radar.
Yeah.
Right. So there you see
the hordes of tourists.
It's awfully high. It's super elevated.
So
it's a really good.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I seen these thrones sitting here. Their bodies. Maybe they didn't put the heads back on.
No, they haven't. There's, as far as I know, I
thought they did.
It's kind of like what we saw when we were there. So the statues would have been like 45 feet high with the heads on.
High, real
something
high.
like that. I mean, that's it's significant.
How did they get them up there?
Yeah, that's an intact cap. I think that might be Apollo / Hermes /
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
That's a reconstruction.
That almost looks.
Yeah, that's a reconstruction.
Yeah, that's a reconstruction. Yeah.
Yeah, but
But nice that they did it.
But can you imagine how impressive that would have been?
Well, they actually look like little gnomes, don't they?
That's crazy. It's also crazy. Let's see what this other file is before we move on to y'all's next one. Oh, here's the Noah's Ark structure. Here's some aerial views of the Noah's Ark structure.
Right, I've never seen that.
Now check this out. On Mount Ararat on the side, this has been really researched by a lot of people. And I'm going to tell you firsthand that I used to correspond with Ron Wyatt before he died. When he died, his family sent me a letter and told me, "Hey man, he's passed away. He won't be writing you anymore." And all that. I said, "Okay." But I kept getting materials from Ron Wyatt and I wasn't convinced, even though I was a Christian back then. And I'm looking through his books on giants. I'm looking through his reports, his discovery of the Ark of the Covenant, his discovery of Noah's Ark, of Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm going through the Ronmite materials, and they're not resonating with me. And I wanted to believe, because back then I was trying to find everything that supported my Christian upbringing.
Sure.
And I'm looking through his materials, man. It's just not right. And this right here, a lot of people have researched this, and like there's books about it. I'm gonna show you this right here, just real fast. Oh,
No, it's like Mauro Bellino's work.
there's many. I'm reading his book right now.
Oh,
But
good. Yeah.
there are many books about this structure. Here's two of them right here. And the deal is this is the decayed remains of a fossilized ship. But it's not the type of ship that the ark would have been, that can hold all these animals and all this stuff like that. And it may not even be that old, because we do have records from like Ammianus Marcellinus, where he talks about this vast tsunami that swept over the entire Mediterranean world, when the entire Mediterranean sloshed and it pulled everybody in Alexander, Egypt, the Greek Alexander, Egypt city, all the way, pulled everybody out to sea. And all the ships disappeared, and Ammianus Marcellinus said that he and other Greeks had explored northern Greece all the way into the mountains of Turkey and found the decaying remains of ships from the Mediterranean at thousands of feet altitude.
Right.
Really?
Because it's a pretty, I mean, that would be
So
a pretty big ship.
You think it's possible that it could be from that event?
No, I think that
No.
other events like that have already happened in the past,
Mhm.
and that this has been really studied by a lot of people, and it was wood at one time. It's mineralized, but you can still see pieces of wood in the mineralite, whatever it became. It's like half fossil, so it's very
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And yes, it was a ship at one time. Was it Noah's Ark? No. Could Noah's Ark, listen to me, could the Noah's Ark narrative been created based off ancient people finding this? I believe that could be the case, because I'm very convinced that Turkey holds secrets that are only resolved by a very careful analysis of the first 10 chapters of Genesis. That's what my next video is about. But,
Okay.
Turkey has some really compelling anomalies. Look at this. That's the same structure.
Oh, interesting.
Same structure. There it is again.
Oh.
Yep.
But,
Well, it's interesting. Whatever it is, it's certainly interesting.
Do they know how old that is?
it's on Mount Ararat. It's at least 5,000-6,000 years old.
Wow.
It's
So
on
which
Mount
Bellino
Ararat.
book are you reading?
Come again?
What Mauro Bellino book are you now reading?
The Naked Bible.
Okay.
This one right here. I got it right here.
I think Gods of the Bible is even better.
Yeah, that's this one.
Right here.
Yeah, that one is
Yeah.
that one has got too much of the guy interviewing him and not enough Bellino, in my opinion. Yeah, his other book is a lot directly right to the point of, here are the words, here's what they mean.
Well, I'll get to it, because I stand corrected on some issues with him. I thought because all these ancient aliens proponents, because they're citing him, I thought that was his position as well. So I may be wrong.
He might get to that position, but at least his other book, he
Gods
only
of the
kind of
Bible.
gets it to the end. But isn't that the truth with so many people? Their research is good, and the conclusions from the research don't do much for you,
Yeah, I get it. So let's see here. Yeah, we're going to get to the juicy. I like these pictures. These are some
Oh,
interesting.
this is
Okay.
the Asclepieion?
So the Asclepieion is in Pergamum. Okay, and the Asclepius was a Greek god of healing.
Yep.
And he was a son of Apollo, and as you know, there are two versions of Apollo. There's the Apollo of the destruction, and then there's the Apollo Ulios. Ulios is the Greek word for healer. So there's a whole healing tradition having to do with Apollo that Parmenides, amongst other people, is part of.
I'm glad you told me that, because I had not made the connection between Pergamum, which the Bible calls the seat of Satan. I had not made the connection to this temple being a temple of Apollo, because Apollo Pharmakia is related to the breaking of the first seal. And I don't know if you guys watched my video on
We
that,
did watch.
but that's very interesting that we're looking at the same thing from two different vantage points. That Apollo, because Apollo is also the subject matter of the book of Revelation, in that the breaking of the seals are necessary in order for a false prophet and a false Christ to open up a portal that's going to release Apollyon. So this is all very interesting that the Christian records would say that Apollo's son's temple, the god of medicine, which is related to Apollo Pharmakia, is here. It is right here. This is the exact same spot that the New Testament books claim is Satan's seat. That is really interesting.
I don't know where that. How does I don't get it?
And
you have to help me out here. Where does Satan come in? Why did they feel that way?
Because the Apollo Pharmakia attacked the human race using pharmaceutical companies. The whole idea of Apollo is not as a savior, but as a destroyer, and that's what Apollyon actually means, the destroyer. So Apollo is regarded from the early Christian point of view as a false god, a false illuminator, and to be watched. And so his son would be no different. And it's really interesting, the correlates here that the Christian records would identify Pergamum as the seat of Satan, and here in Pergamum we have this reference to Apollo in this temple.
This is the most amazing healing center. This Asclepieion. Yeah,
I get that. Well, I get that 100%. But the Apollo was known as a healer. He was also known as the father of the god of medicine, and he received his information from the centaur. Can't remember the name of the centaur that taught Apollo all this deal, but it relates to the first horseman. So in the book of Revelation, we have the breaking of the seals, which now we don't have a holy version of Apollo. In the breaking of the first seals, now we have the pharmaceutical companies, which are under the Hippocratic Oath, and the Hippocratic Oath starts with a pledge to Apollo. All the Hippocratic Oaths start with a pledge to Apollo, and then now Apollo is being used to attack the human family. This was what unfolded in 2020 with all the medical stuff. But that's subject matter of other videos.
Right. I'm just curious if you also know the Greek word pharmakon. There's two Greek words, pharmakon and pharmakos, right? And the pharmakon is the one that becomes the word pharmacy, and the pharmakos is their word for scapegoat.
Oh wow, scapegoat's a good one too.
Yeah, so they had a whole scapegoat ritual. So this that they would do if there was like a plague or something like that. And,
right.
I don't get into the whole story about it, but the two words are only one letter off. So,
but this water in this structure is a holy well, and it's for healing. So I imagine that the person would be immersed in these healing waters, and there was water running underground throughout this whole architecture, this whole landscape. On our way out, we noticed that just the ground we were walking on was covered with stone, and then we realized, because it was quiet then, that there were channels of water running completely down underneath the road, and it was feeding all these structures.
Water was running under the stadium, under the theater. I think we got some pictures of all of this.
Yeah, we have some photos.
You can see it was huge. So I mentioned incubation. So what one of the main forms of healing would be either you or a priest or priestess would go into these incubation rooms and lie down and connect with Asclepius and get information as to what you need to have done for your healing.
Wow.
Should I tell the story of? So there's one, they used to write down these things.
Oh yeah.
So
this is a good story.
My favorite one, and this is actually written down or chiseled out somewhere, that this woman went to, I don't know if it was this Asclepieion, there were like a number of them, and she was having trouble getting pregnant. So she goes into the incubation and she calls on Asclepius. Asclepius comes to her and says, so hi, what can I help you with? And she says, well, I'm having trouble becoming pregnant. And Asclepius says, okay, that's no problem. Anything else you want? And she says, no, that's great. So she goes out and she becomes pregnant. And all of a sudden you're coming up on 2 years and she's still pregnant. So she goes back to the temple and she goes back and Asclepius comes back to her again and says, hi, I remember you. How you doing? Well, I asked you if I become pregnant. And he said, yeah, great, no problem. And so anything else? He says, yeah, well, I want to have the baby. I said, well, you had to tell me that. You just told me you wanted to become pregnant. But there's this whole long thing of being literal with the gods, just part of that theme.
I get it. I mean, that's what you had to be real to the point. Like you mentioned earlier, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but you said that a certain place was called Kabil, K-I-B-L-E or Kybele.
Kybele, the goddess, Kybele.
Okay, yeah, the goddess Kybele. Well, that is the origin for the Sibyls, which were adopted by the Greeks later. The Sibyls that ran the oracles.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
I was thinking about you, and I was reading Livy about bringing the Kybele to Rome during the time of the Punic Wars, and like his first line was, well, it rained stones more than usual that year. So like, okay, but, it was usual, but we had a lot more stones coming from the sky that year.
Well, there was the only one that I can call to mind that I can actually tell you with confidence is 54 BC. In 54 BC, in Laconia, it was a thunderstorm, but there was no rain. It was all rocks falling from the sky, from the clouds. And it's recorded in the historical record by several ancient authors. Pliny the Elder, though, not only does he mention that one, but Pliny in Natural History lists a whole bunch of other times where stones fell from the sky. Mm-hmm. So this is where Anaxagoras got his theory that the sun was a solid. Anaxagoras got his theory around 300 BC or so, based off the idea that there was a long record of time where stones had been falling from the sky, sometimes a blue sky. So Anaxagoras, the Greek scientist, had come up with a theory that maybe the sun, even though it's bright, maybe it's a solid and it's spitting things out. And by the time they reach Earth, it's a solid stone.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be.
Well, good deduction.
Who knows?
You never know. But I don't really care if the ancients are right or wrong. I like to cite these stories because it shows that people, even without the necessary data, were still thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so this is the Asclepieion. There's a portico walkway.
See, off to the right by those two trees is where that pool was.
So that's where the spring is. So there's the walkway. You can see they have a theater. So the healing would involve a lot of music. That goes back to Pythagoras. He was kind of the inventor of musical therapy, really. So it was just this huge complex, and we really we just felt a real connection there. And you see nobody here, but Chris takes these pictures in between massive busloads of people that stay for like 15 minutes and leave.
I'm very patient. Yeah. So, yeah.
I know who that is. He don't look nothing like he did when he was there the first time.
That's right.
Yeah, I do a lot more sitting now.
Yeah.
So,
this was along the walkway on the road going in. So the parking lot is behind us, and then there was a grove of trees that you walked under, which when we went through, we felt like, hey, welcome back. And so this stone walkway, and then there would be these pools, alternate here and there, and you could hear the water running. The road is to the right, that stone road. And then there were these healing pools.
Yeah, and when you came in, they would have harpists playing.
And vendors probably where you could buy offerings to give.
Yeah, and there's the little theater.
you can imagine all the amazing tragedies and
Oh, boy.
stage plays and speeches,
Mhm.
grand oratory poems that were recited, everything that was done in
Mhm.
here, Paul.
And this was a small theater. This was very intimate. So yeah, it
It was a couple hundred people, yeah.
wasn't big at all. And there was water running under there. We were just walking away, and I heard this water running. Did you get the picture of
Underneath
that
it.
one?
Well, that's we
There's
have it actually on our YouTube page.
Well, on to the right, there's like an arched opening, like a window on either side. And if you stick your head inside, you can hear water running,
Yeah.
echoing, like actually like a spring coming up or something. There
It's
was water
amazing.
everywhere, everywhere.
It's amazing that all these ancient Greek and Christian cities and all that were made out of stone. I mean, they could have made all this stuff much faster and more effective with wood.
Boring, yeah.
Yeah. So that was another one I sent you because that was the library.
This is what's left of the library.
Oh man, that hurts my heart.
Doesn't it hurt your heart?
So that would have been some huge medical library.
Yeah.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So go ahead, you.
Well, there was this went down into a tunnel that led to another healing area, and there actually had skylights in it. So as you walked in, it was sort of arched, almost like a Roman kind of arch, but there were openings all along the ceiling on the way where light would come in, so you weren't walking in the dark. But there you go with the water, and that was coming up from the healing spring.
Yeah.
When you come out the other end, there are baths. And so there were like these enclosed baths. The front was open, and the water was just everywhere you went. There was running water, active, alive.
So so this was all about taking all whatever was going on with you negatively and just running it out of the center.
That's amazing.
Isn't that wonderful? There it is.
So there's the little tunnels.
So I could describe it, but it doesn't do justice. When you see the photo, it really shows you how ingenious it was. And then when you're walking across the lawn, that's where all those openings are.
It's amazing.
Isn't it?
It's amazing you got him to stand up.
That's it. I'm leaning on
He
the
took
wall.
the waters.
I'm leaning on the wall.
Yeah.
We actually went back a second day. It was so charming.
Okay, so now this is the Oracle of Apollo at Didyma.
It's out by the water, right by the coast.
Oh, this is Didyma?
Yeah, I call it Didyma, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, you're right. That is a famous Apollo oracle.
Yes. Yeah. So and it's huge.
It was
really huge, and
like
it was open air. It did not have most temples have a roof. This had no roof, and you can see some of the pictures where we're going. You kind of go down again. You go down into this interior space, and that's where the oracle was. And so there's a couple of it left, and you can just get an idea of the scope of this thing.
It's huge.
And again, all the marble everywhere. It's one of the, I think there's like three main, oracle centers for Apollo.
In the old world, it was a transcultural, but Egypt did it. The Near East, all the different cultures of the Near East did it. The Greeks and Romans did it. Somewhere in this temple, you see these huge blocks on the ground?
Yes.
Somewhere in this temple and every other temple in the ancient world, there's going to be a stone that covers up an empty recess. That empty recess has a founding tablet, artifacts, things that are put in there, like a time capsule, a document. Sometimes there's a sacrifice. A human is killed and put in fetal position with a bunch of possessions. Sometimes in the arms of the sacrificial victim, they would put a tablet and a dedication so that the spirits would protect the structure.
Oh,
interesting.
Wow, really?
Well, just like the Christian churches always hollowed out something in their altar, and would put put something reliquary in there.
Yeah, like relics of them.
So
That's the Steve I know.
Yeah. That's me.
You couldn't help it. The food is so amazing in Turkey.
So even, and this
I'm
is,
about to get in your business.
yeah, that's it. I forget what this was
Oh,
actually. This was actually a buffet. Look at it. Look at that calamari. Now that's calamari. You know, and that's Iran, which is like our favorite thing to drink.
It's a yogurt drink with
it's-
salt.
Yes, a salted drink. The bread now. So you're getting back to some of the stuff you're talking about, the origins, and you'll get into that. But also the origin of wheat is in the mountains of Turkey. All right, the area that you're talking about as putative Eden. That's where, and it's still there. You know, all the wild wheat is still there.
It's amazing.
So yeah, all the wheat and all the bread and all of everything like that comes out of Turkey. So this is going down into where the oracle would be, down at the bottom. So that's the passage down there.
Interesting. Very interesting blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is the Artemisium, where one of the great, so-called seven wonders of the world, the temple to Artemis. And
Yeah,
that's near that's Ephesus.
Yeah, I remember back when it was standing. It took over 300 years to complete this temple.
And that's all that's left.
Yeah, and the interesting story too. It burned down the day that Alexander was born.
Yep, the day that Alexander of Macedon, before he became Alexander the Great, when he was born, I remember reading all about that. This temple burned down.
Yeah,
Temple of Artemisia.
Yeah,
Artemis.
One of the, it's just spectacular, and all this stuff is gone. And supposedly, who is it? The Empress Theodosius took a lot of that and made Hagia Sophia in Istanbul with it.
Yeah, well, that's why so much of the stone is missing from a lot of ancient temples. It's just repurposed into newer structures by newer cultures that didn't appreciate the cultures that had already passed on.
So yeah, so Ephesus, you can see a couple of pictures from Ephesus. So Ephesus is still, because it, I guess it was the harbor silted up, and there was an earthquake or a plague or both that they didn't.
Go get it.
Yeah, so because there was an earthquake, a lot of it's the closest thing to walking an ancient Greek city. Now that was I gave specially for you because I know you're so fond of the zodiac.
Oh, I'm not.
Is he not?
So these were found at Ephesus. They're Roman era. They're not Greek era.
Yeah.
So
what is this, alabaster?
It's marble.
It's white marble, I guess.
It's white marble. And so 2 statues of Diana, Artemis were found almost intact. And that's a very famous one. So
yeah,
we
brought some home.
We brought the goddess home with us.
And this one. So in the museum, these are in separate niches across the hall from each other and facing one another.
Right. Yeah, this is the Diana of the Ephesians, or the Apostle Paul went and visited the temple in its heyday.
Yes.
And yeah, he talked about it. He gave a speech to the worshipers of Diana.
Right. Yeah. So we'll get to that. So anyway, so this is the most famous statues coming out of there, and again, you see flanked by. In this case, I don't know if those are lambs or what on the ground.
Maybe gazelles or something.
Could be. Well, yes, could be. It should be because Diana was at least originally the goddess of the wild, wild nature. Not necessarily so.
But these, of course, in person are just breathtaking because the niche that they're in, as you can see, is black, and they just have this light shining on it, and it's stunning. It's larger than life.
Yeah, and they had another room which we don't have a picture of, which is of all the various statues of Cybele, the Great Mother, and all these niches that they recreated.
Yeah, that was nice.
Wow.
Yeah, but these are huge.
So these are, if you've ever been to Turkey, there's a lot of cats. They're everywhere.
Wow.
And so this is the cats of Ephesus.
And the store owners take care of them. So there's cats all over the place in the cities and in the villages, and they're like communal pets. Everyone takes care of them.
Yeah, probably keep the rodent population down.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do a great job.
Good point.
So this is the this huge church of St. John in Ephesus. All right.
Look at the size. Oh, right here in the front, this one foundation block.
Right. Now, was that built on something else? I don't know.
Right.
That is, I mean, how would they even lift that in the ancient world?
No,
right. And so this is
baffles me.
I'm going to guess 500, 600, something like that.
Okay, so that's not that old.
I'm not exactly sure, but it was built as a church to St. John.
Now, you didn't see much of that colored granite anywhere. This is
the
only place I remember seeing that.
And because of the tradition of John living in Ephesus, taking care of Jesus' mother Mary.
Yeah.
So, and then I think we have a picture of that. So they have something that they've identified as her house.
The House of Mary.
So this is again some of the Church of John. So it must have been just an amazing cathedral. I did see, they did have a reconstruction there of it, but it's pretty spectacular. So this is still all in Ephesus, or in the town around Ephesus.
Yep, that's awesome.
Right. So go ahead. You can.
So this is at the House of Mary in Ephesus, and the house is above this. It was like you can see there's like a walkway there with the fences.
Yeah.
And the house is above it. But this is where there is spring water comes out, and there are actually faucets where you can fill up your containers with the holy water. But these are all prayer flags you would see in Tibet. But this is like people would leave offerings or ask for a special healing or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And that they asked you not to take pictures inside it. So this is from, I don't know, a postcard or something like that.
And there was, they have an eternal prayer going on. So to the left here, there was a monk sitting in a chair, and there's always someone in prayer at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Man.
And this was just a tiny space. It was a room that was like a very small chapel.
But it was, when I went there in '83, and there was nothing there. You just had to walk across this huge field for about half a mile, and there was this little house sitting by itself. There was nothing there. Went back with Krys. It was a whole operation because the Christian tourism, Turkey got smart and decided to take what they could from the Christian tourists. As you mentioned, all the original churches of the Book of Revelation are in Turkey.
Yep.
So
when we're done with your pictures, I'm about to go into that, because Turkey has some amazing history, layers of civilizations.
Oh yeah,
pancakes on top of each other.
So this is actually Roman built, but it's the library of Celsus, and Celsus was the guy who built the library. So this is the facade of the library, and it's one of the structures that's still there. So that would have been the entrance to the library. And Krys again took a picture with only half a dozen people, whereas there were just people pouring all over the place.
Wow.
And so at the base of it, so that's in Greek, that's Sophia, Sophia. So that's me and my gal Sophia. And you can see the artistry is exquisite.
Mm-hmm. It's like lace.
It's amazing.
And these people, this is how people lived, they just lived with this stuff in the streets,
Mm-hmm.
This is, you just take a walk, and this is what was all around them. And that's one of the main thoroughfares. And, and of course, as you know, most ancient statues got beheaded by later people who were not happy about them. So that's the walkway going down to the library.
To the library, I see it there.
And that's the theater
That was huge.
Yeah. So that's like a 20,000 person theater. And it's so the stage is inside there. But anyway, so that's where Paul was making his speech.
Krys, did you take this picture?
Yeah, I took like 99%.
She took all the pictures.
99% of them.
Well, you know how I knew you took this one?
How?
Because I'm in it? No, that's
right there.
There's Steve Crimi.
I found him leaning on something else.
Found him. It's like, where's Waldo? Very good, Jason.
Yeah. No, she took the vast majority. She didn't take that one. So now we're in Gobekli Tepe. And
yeah, man.
On top of the hill is this tree. I can tell you the ring story.
Yeah. So the the stones are to the left below, and there's a little walkway goes up to this sweet little hill, and this beautiful tree, and all the gorse is in bloom. Well, maybe it was mustard. I think it was mustard. So I wanted to leave something in gratitude. So I had a ring that we had purchased in Australia when we were visiting friends in Australia. And I thought, well, I don't have anything else. I'll leave the ring. So I put the ring, I kind of put it in the bark of the tree. And the next day we went back and it was gone. So I say that my gift was accepted. I don't think someone stole it. I think it was accepted. But that was a beautiful, in Ireland, when we visited there, they have these trees where people would make offerings, and it's called a clootie tree. And it's almost like when you go to Nepal and you see where they tie on the mountain passes, where they tie the rags to the tree. Well, in Ireland, they do that too. And you take it and you put it on, like, if you have a sore arm or something, you put it on your arm, and then the tree takes on and heals you. It takes your suffering away. So this reminded me of the clootie tree that you would see in Ireland. And I thought it was only appropriate to leave some kind of an offering. But this was quite an amazing place.
Right. Well, then what happened later, Krys was sitting next to someone on a plane.
Oh, right.
We were going back. We were flying from Izmir to Istanbul. And Krys gets into this conversation with a woman who didn't speak any English. And this woman just at the end of the conversation.
Well, yeah. First of all, she wanted to share her lunch with me. So that was sweet. But then she just decided she wanted to give me a ring. And so she took the ring off her finger and gave me the ring. And this was on the way back from Gobekli Tepe. We were going back to the West Coast. And she gave me this beautiful ring. So I thought that was
a flower that.
Yeah, it had a flower in it that was in bloom when we were at the Asclepieion. It was like a little white marguerite daisy, a tiny little, or like a chamomile flower, something like that, embedded in the ring.
That's the beauty of traveling, it's an instant reciprocity very often.
An acknowledgement that your gift was accepted.
Okay. So here's the Gobekli, whatever they are, platypuses or dodo birds.
Yeah, emus or whatever. I'm familiar with this pillar too. Yeah.
So that's a couple of them on my shirt. So yeah, unfortunately, when we were there, it was beginning of the season, and actually, I think that winter, I forget the main person, Klaus Schmidt.
He was a German archaeologist.
So he's the head archaeologist there. Exactly he died swimming, and so it was kind of closed up, and it really it definitely took the charm off the place.
Took the magic out of it. They had this roof over it.
Big cover and wood everywhere. You couldn't get to the pillars. You couldn't take any pictures. And as you can see, other than some docent, there was really nobody there.
Okay, this right here.
Mm-hmm.
You see the wood in front of this pillar?
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is not unimportant. It is the only pillar in Gobekli Tepe that has been excavated that looks anything like this. And I have a video I'm releasing. As soon as this video is over, it's already on YouTube. All I got to do is publish it. And it's about this pillar and what it means and where this pillar has been found somewhere else in the world. It's amazing.
Right.
This pillar here is a prophecy And that's what I'm explaining in my next video.
Mm.
This pillar is an ancient prophecy and it is found in the Bible. This pillar is amazing. These are hands. These are fingers, you say.
Right.
This is
Right.
a belt. This is a belt in a loincloth. This pillar identifies a person in the form of a pillar. These hands, exactly like this, and this belt and loincloth, it's
Mhm.
all been found on the opposite side of the
So
wall.
did it also, the other sister pillar, did it also have the pelt in the front?
You're talking about this belt in the whatever's hanging down?
It's like an animal pelt almost, or like you're saying, a
It looks
loincloth.
like
or
I don't know. I don't know if it quite looks like that, but yes, it does have the loincloth area.
Okay, yeah, because this is people consider this a fox because I think there are other ones that look like that. But yeah,
Yeah. What's important is these are arms. You can see in other pictures. I provide. You can see the
Mhm.
sides of the pictures. These are arms ending in hands with fingers.
yes,
And it's the way they're folded right in the
Mhm.
navel area, right above the belt.
Mhm.
This exact same motif is found in the opposite hemisphere, and what it's attached to is amazing.
And
But
what country?
well, you'll see that in
Oh,
my
no,
next
it's
video.
watch-
To be
Yeah.
watch the
revealed.
video. Watch the
Okay.
video, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I was really excited when I saw that y'all have been there and saw that pillar. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
Well, we didn't know that import about it. Now
Well,
we
you're
know.
gonna it's shocking, really. Oh wow, look at this picture.
Isn't that
okay,
gorgeous?
right. So I thought you'd enjoy that one. That's this. Actually, the first day in 2015 we were there. It was the second day after
Was that the
there was
grand-
a huge the whole country.
Yes.
The electricity was out everywhere.
The whole
in Turkey.
country.
The whole city, and everybody was just like, all right, well, they just shrugged anyway. So unfortunately, there's a little bit tough copy. Um, and so it was. I'm glad at least I got a picture, but there was no lights on anywhere, and not. I don't think there was anything on the regular bookshelf that was in English.
Was this the one across from the Grand Bazaar?
No, this was on that walkway, that street, that cobblestone street. So that's the outside of that bookstore.
Well, there's the man himself.
There he is. And that woman right there is our friend Seven, who she's a lawyer. And so she was kind of took us in and showed us all around
Yeah,
Istanbul, and
she was very
very sweet woman.
That's the Carpet Museum, which is right by Topkapi Palace, which is the Ottoman palace, where everyone was going and no one was going to the
This
Carpet
place was
Museum.
empty.
So
It was like a candy store for us.
Wow.
And this building used to house the kitchens, so they would feed the poor people who didn't have enough food to feed their
And
families. They had
wonder
public kitchens.
these are huge. I wonder what that thread count is.
right.
Good question.
Now these big ones
Infinity.
were probably in mosques. I don't know.
Or the
Usually,
palace.
Right.
Oh, you're going to tell them about
So
your
there's
carpet?
Hagia Sophia. Well, if we got a second, yeah. So a long time ago, I got into sacred geometry through carpets.
I'm going to get the painting.
Through understanding carpets. Well, I got the mug here.
Look,
And anyway, I found a book by this architect named Christopher Alexander. Great book called Foreshadowing of 21st Century Art. And there was a picture of an ancient carpet there. So I decided, well, I'm going to paint it. And I didn't know the colors yet. So I just painted this carpet. Chris is bringing out the picture.
Here's the painting that Steve did.
And
The only painting he ever did in his whole life. Whoops.
So, and then
This way.
long story short, I didn't know the colors. I didn't know anything because it was a black and white picture. I recreated the carpet, and then we went to that museum, and there it was sitting, sitting in the middle of the room.
Oh my God, Steve, look at this.
And it's an ancient
This
carpet.
is the original.
Carpets don't last that long. It's from the 1400s. So this is the famous building, Hagia Sophia, which was originally a church built by Justinian in the 500s, and it was the largest building on the planet for something like 1,000 years. And what the amazing thing is, they developed this idea of building half domes and then having the huge dome on top, so you create this immense interior space. It's just it's astonishingly beautiful. And then, of course, you know, then in what was it, 1453, the Ottomans took over Constantinople, renamed it Istanbul, which just means to the city.
Yeah.
And then it became a mosque, and then it became a museum, and now it's a mosque again. Erdogan, to appease his fans.
In 1453, Constantinople knew that the Turks were coming, and this inventor had used a team of mules to pull this contraption in, and showed it to Constantinople and said, "Hey, if you guys want to defend yourselves, I have developed a weapon that will turn away the enemy, and you don't have to waste all your men and your armies fighting man for man. This weapon is like the thunder of God, and it's gonna scare your enemies, and it's also going to kill a bunch of them, and you can use it multiple times." And they turned him away, and they laughed at him in Constantinople, and they said, "No, we don't want this." He showed them a cannon, so he they kicked him out, and he left, and the Turks came upon him, and he demonstrated the weapons for the Turks, and the Turks paid him in gold for that cannon, and they used that cannon to take over Constantinople.
They bust. That's how they busted the wall. I mean, they had a huge wall in the city, right? And that's how they busted it and went in.
That's how they did it. That's the story of the fall of Constantinople and the creation of Istanbul.
Amazing.
So that's in a one of the museums of Istanbul, museum, and they have a lot of that. I just love that shot. I don't know.
Awesome picture. It's an awesome picture.
Yeah, it was a beautiful outdoor museum.
And that is
Sinan?
That is So Sinan is the Suleiman's architect, and he made all these incredibly beautiful mosques and bridges, and he lived to be 100 years old back then. And this is his mausoleum, which is a very small, modest mausoleum, but you can't really see it. But they were formed like a compass.
If you were to look top
down. So this would be the circle on the top, and then the street is angled like a compass would be. So he buried himself inside a compass.
Wow.
I thought it was very cool. And that's kind of an obscure mosque in Istanbul, and I just sent that picture just to show the scope of the Ottoman tiles.
Golly.
They just surrounded themselves with beauty. Everything, every utilitarian instrument was made to be beautiful.
So this is back in Pergamum, and this was originally a temple to Isis, and then it became something called the Red Church, because I think all the outer marble was taken away, and then they got turned into a church. And this temple of Isis, and I'm not going to remember the dimensions, but the courtyard, the marble courtyard in front of it was something like astonishingly large. I mean like a kilometer or something. It was just apparently it was immense. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figures on that, but it was just something mind-boggling large. So this is on the side of it, and they're just kind of recreating. It was a temple to Isis and Serapis, and that's Serapis.
Oh, okay, Serapion.
Yeah, so
I get it. Yeah.
Right. So and Serapis was kind of an amalgam of it's a sort of a late Egyptian Greek amalgam of gods. They're very popular in Alexandria, and this is the city of Foggia, which is the ancient city of Phocaea, and is one of these important harbors. And in that wall was a niche for Cybele, but you really can't see it. There's no statue there or anything like that. But that that was built into the harbor there. There's not very little left. And the odd Persian mausoleum, just like in the middle of nowhere near off the road, near Foggia, Phocaea.
Wow. This reminds me of Dawn and I went to Galveston recently just to get away, and we went to the oldest graveyard in Galveston. I was really surprised by finding graves from the 1700s and the early 1800s, pre-Civil War. It really shocked me. But when we got there, this guy climbs out of a mausoleum a little bit smaller than this one.
Oh, really?
He climbs out, goes to talking to Dawn, so I get alarmed, and I go over there, and he kind of backs off a little bit when he sees me, and he's like, "Hey, man, I just, I'm just trying to eat too, and I know everything about this whole entire graveyard. If you want a tour, I can give you a tour, man. It's just." So I realized he wasn't a threat because he was talking to Dawn. I didn't know what they were talking about. They were far away because I got carried away taking pictures of headstones. So I made it over there, and Dawn's like, "This guy just came out of a mausoleum. He just came out of a crypt. He's a homeless guy. But he was really friendly. He was really cool, and he basically lived in there. And so he was well kept. He kept clean. He had places to wash off and all that. But he had told us he's homeless and he's living in the graveyard. And then he proceeded to give Dawn and I a fantastic tour, telling us where to go to get your oldest pictures. And I needed that because there's no way that Dawn and I could have went through that whole graveyard in one day. There's just too vast.
Really?
So within an hour and a half, I got all the pictures I needed, and I put them in a video on YouTube. They're in a video for people to see. I got blow-ups of all the deals while I'm narrating about Galveston history and all that. And this picture reminded me of that because this was just less than 2 months ago.
Oh, isn't that funny?
All right. So there's the ancient harbor of Foggia, of Phocaea, and so Phocaea, it's a real interesting story about Phocaea, is that they put the Persian army was at the walls of the city, and they gave them an ultimatum to surrender or be destroyed, your basic ultimatum, and they said, okay, can we give you the answer in the morning? And they emptied the city so that the Persians walked into an empty city.
They packed up, and didn't they go?
They ended up going to Ilium, and so this would have been like Parmenides' father and teachers were amongst the people, and they ended up settling in Velea, which is between Rome and Naples on the west coast.
Eventually found Marseille.
Well, the Phocaeans already had a colony in Marseille, and they were next to the Phoenicians, the best sailors of all. Phocaea means seal, so they took after the seals. So this is your place. So
this is out in the far east. This is far from Gobekli Tepe. Yes. It's like 20-minute drive to Gobekli, and this is called the Pool of Abraham. And our hotel room was just out to the right, and there was this beautiful park. And then there's is it a teke, a school? All the colonnades there. That's all there are classrooms in there. And so this was there was a story about, I don't remember the story about.
The story was basically like somebody was going after Abraham and his followers, and he jumped off the cliff, and God turned his followers into fish, and they landed in the pool or something. It's something along those lines. So the pool is sacred. It's a real big pilgrimage site. We were obviously the only Americans anywhere near there, and that was also in 2015. The whole thing with ISIS was really up, and there was just this sort of small period of time where it was calm. So we went there, but we only stayed 2 days to go to Gobekli Tepe. I mean, there's stuff all over there, especially now. There's more that's been found to see. The city of Haran, things like that. Some incredible stuff. But we figured 2 days and before people started noticing that we were there. And
there were a lot of refugees coming in, and there's like 2 million refugees that Turkey had taken in.
Yeah, it was near the Syrian
and it
border.
was not considered safe. So
Wow.
we notified the State Department that we were going to be there, and we just got in and out. We stayed 2 days and left.
So you guys have given us a visual tour of three trips that you went to Turkey. So Turkey isn't just an ordinary place, geographical place. I want to educate my listeners real quick on just how anomalous this area is in a real short list. This is where you walked. You went 3 times to this area here. First of all, that area has it's not just Gobekli Tepe, it has over a dozen tepe sites, and they're still unexcavated. They know the locations, they've dug up little pieces of them, and they know they're vast. But we're talking about not small communities, we're talking about a buried infrastructure. It's all out there in Turkey. Also, we're also talking about over a dozen Huyuk sites. Catal Huyuk is only one of many of these places. Now, in the video that follows this video, I'm presenting evidence showing that the tepes and the Huyuks are the same culture. Same culture. The Huyuks were built on flatland, and the tepes were built on hills, and all of them were buried in the same earth at the exact same time from the same event. So this is where I'm going with this information. Now, what's interesting is that the tepes and the Huyuk sites all over Turkey have no history, no written records, no traditions, nothing. This tells me that this is pre-23rd century BC. Because had it been after the 23rd century BC, we would have the evidence like Sumer, Akkad, Aleppo, Rashamra, Ugarit. We would have the Hittites. We have all that, but we don't. Cuneiform was developed and distributed in the 24th, 23rd, 22nd century BC. Yet there's nothing in the historical record about Catal Huyuk, nothing about the Tepe sites, Gobekli Tepe, and yet the artifacts that have been found there can be positively dated. So let me get to that. You guys know that there's over 60 underground cities in Turkey. I don't know. You guys never went to all of them, but you did go to Derinkuyu.
And there are tunnels between them too. They're not individual.
Exactly. That's how the other ones were found.
Yeah, they're connected. Yeah.
Right. In 1962, which is really interesting because 1962 is the final year of the Anunnaki Ner chronology. And I'm pretty sure you guys haven't followed all that, but I've got videos that explain the ancient Ner system of the Anuna was based off the Sumerian sexagesimal system. And it's off 6-year periods, it's off 60-year periods, and the great year of 600-year periods. In the final 600-year periods that forms our pentagonal dodecahedron of time, this vast Anuna calendar that's in the Sumerian records, the final year was 1962. In 1962, many archaeological discoveries all over the world that are very profound all happened simultaneously. And one of them was Derinkuyu. And when the archaeologists went into Derinkuyu, the first thing they found was that the first 2 levels of Derinkuyu were full of Hittite graffiti. Which instantly told the archaeologist that these underground cities were pre-Hittite, and that they had not been built by the Hittites, but Hittite like youth and youngsters would go in there and do and put like graffiti and cuneiform and artwork and pictograms and stuff like that. And so they knew that these, because there's no references in any of the Hittite cuneiform to these as well. We're dealing with an infrastructure in ancient Turkey that is before the period of literacy. This is where I'm going with this. All the tepes, all the Huyuks, and the underground cities. But what I see here is very interesting, and it's what my next video is about. What the layout of the tepes are, these are described in Genesis perfectly. The whole idea of the tepes, the pillars, the enclosed walls, and what that one pillar with the finger shows. In my next video, I'm showing how it ties not only to Genesis, but also to the book of Revelation. It's profound. But the Noah's Ark structure It doesn't matter if it's Noah's Ark at all. I don't even believe it is. But the very fact that in the historical record, like Josephus, he even mentions Mount Ararat is where the structure is from Noah's boat. So what I'm saying is Turkey seems to be the center, the nexus, the hub of the things that we find of the oldest biblical stories, like the Great Flood.
Right.
You mentioned earlier, where's all the soil? Where's all the soil from all the mountainous areas? Because evidently it was here, and you can tell it's all washed away. Well, all the lower areas are where the Huyuks and the tepes are, and they're all buried in 10 to 15 foot of soil. And the prevailing theory is so stupid, it is ridiculous. I have to mention it only because it's ludicrous. And the prevailing archaeological theory about Gobekli Tepe is that the people who built the site then buried it intentionally when they left. This is in the archaeological monographs. This is what is published about Gobekli Tepe, and it's stupid, because it would equally have to apply to Catal Huyuk and the other 13 Huyuk sites. It would equally have to apply to the other 13 or 14 Tepe sites. But it's just the manpower required for that. If we employ Occam's razor, it was a cataclysm that buried all this civilization.
Right.
And this is what we have in Turkey with the underground cities. In Phrygia, we have a tradition, which is Turkey. We have a tradition of Archaix, an ancient king before a cataclysm. He knew that the world was going to be destroyed, and the only way he could save his people was to build underground dwellings and have his people hide from the coming of the sun. This is the collapse of the vapor canopy. Well, in Turkey, that's the only area anywhere in that part of the world where we have underground cities. Not one, but we've got 60 of them.
I didn't know there were that many.
Again, Turkey is where we have our biblical flood story. The ancients always referred to Mount Ararat as being a part of the flood narrative. So here's what's interesting. Sumerian cuneiform, we have cuneiform in Babylon, Assyrian cuneiform, and the common denominator between this central literary hub is that all the stories about the ancient world before the flood involve mining, metals, metallurgy, and mountains. All kinds of mountains are named in the Sumerian records, but there's not a single mountain in Sumer, Babylon, or Assyria. They don't exist. The Tigris-Euphrates River basin has no mountains, and yet this is where the histories were preserved. So it is my theory that Sanchuniathon and the Greek historian Hesiod are absolutely correct, and that is the land of the Titans was in the far west. The Titans are the pre-cataclysm race. Man survived a cataclysm, but they had to travel east to get away from the cataclysm-torn area. When they got away from it, they found a fertile valley and they built in it. This is Babylon. This is Sumer. This is the Tigris-Euphrates basin. So as centuries go by, they know they left a homeland, and the homeland is always referred to as the far west. The far west became Tartar. Later, in the Greeks, it became Tartarus. It literally means in Greek, the far west. However, all the ideas attached to it is that it was underground, and it is a pre-cataclysm culture. What I'm saying is Turkey is west of Babylon, and it seems to me that the traditions are inferring that Turkey was the land of the biblical nativity. Turkey was the land where the earliest stories of Genesis unfolded. And then when later on, when these stories were taken from oral traditions and actually put into writing, it was in the vast library cities of Nineveh and Calneh and Uruk and Babylon. And this is where the stories were told, but that's not where they actually happened. And evidence of this is not just the tepes and the Huyuks, like I'm going to show in this next video, but Turkey has an antiquity nobody else can boast.
Oh, you can feel it.
It's the ancient kingdom of Caria. Most people have never heard of it. Caria. The ancient kingdom of Caria, the Carian fleets were feared in the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC. The Carian fleets just disappeared, probably the Great Flood, whatever. But the kingdom of Hatti was in Turkey. before the Hittites. Then the Hittite Empire emerged out of that, centered at Hattusis. Then Troy of Ilium, the state of Ilium, the capital city was Tros, which we call Troy. You guys know the fall of Troy story from the Sea Peoples Federation in the 13th century BC. But that whole area has been many different nations: Cappadocia, Anatolia, Phrygia, Bithynia, Lydia, what is King Pontus of King Mithradates. We have the ancient oracle of Didyma, which is extremely ancient. One of the greatest historians of all time, who left us a book 24 centuries ago, is Herodotus of Halicarnassus, a major metropolitan city in Turkey. Again, Byzantium became Constantinople. It became modern-day Istanbul, all in Turkey. Turkey is situated north of the Mediterranean. It is exactly east of the Aegean, and it is south of the Black Sea. It is separated by 3 large seas, and it's landlocked only on the side that faces Babylon. You understand? So we have, and you can't just march into Turkey. There's only certain passes. So we have Miletus, we have all of Ionia, and we have the ancient Israelite coasts. When Bit Omri left the Levant area and started spreading out, the house of Omri, which are the ancient Israelites, they settled Ionia. This is when they left Egypt. They were worshiping the cow goddess Io. This is what they borrowed from Egypt. By the time they settled the Turkish coast, which is called Asia Minor, it was called Ionia. And it was a memory of the Israelite pedigree coming from Egypt. So this is Turkey as well. But what blew my mind was I knew some of the churches of early Christian churches in the prophetic book of Revelation. I knew 3 or 4 of them were in Turkey, but it wasn't until 2 days ago that I did an actual search, and I couldn't believe it. Sardis, Thyatira, Smyrna, Laodicea, Philadelphia, Ephesus, Pergamum, where the Bible says that Satan's seat is, all 7 churches of Christianity mentioned in the book of Revelation are in Turkey, all 7 of them.
Wow.
Now, when Paul wrote letters to Christians abroad, he wrote a letter to the Galatians. He wrote a letter to the Colossians. These are districts of Turkey. So it's Paul himself was where? He was from Tarsus. He was originally Saul of Tarsus. Tarsus is a major city in Turkey.
A big learning center.
He did most of his ministry was in Antioch. Antioch is in Turkey. Turkey's also famous for the Piri-Reis map. Turkish navigator produced ancient Phoenician, Carthaginian, Syro-Phoenician, and Jewish maps that prove that Antarctica was not covered in ice at one time in recent history. So my point is this. We need to start a careful look at Turkey. We need to do that. And we're going to do that in this next video. And I really appreciate you guys for being my guest here. And I'm about to die. I got to pee so bad.
Well, then,
I drank way too much.
That sounds like a good time to finish up then.
I'm about to hit this outro, and you guys can go straight into my next video. I thank you guys for being my guests.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Jason. It was great fun. So appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.
All righty.
Hurry up.
See you.
Oh, God.